Meeting of the Plan Commission of Village of Wheeling for Thursday, February 12th, 2015. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Dorband.
I'm here.
Commissioner Powers.
Here.
I'm Commissioner Stylen. I'm present. Commissioner Zangara.
Here.
Acting Chairman Johnson.
Here.
That's 5 present, 1 vacancy, and Chairman Raffato indicated he would be absent tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Jennings, any changes to the agenda?
You have a couple of notes, a couple of items of other business. We had distributed a sign that we had thought might make the items for review. It is going to be discussed under other business and will come as a voting item in our next meeting. We also have a poll under other business that I will describe when we get there. And then item A for review, Northwest Relief Providers, has been withdrawn. If anyone is here for the petition of Northwest Relief Providers, 300 Marquardt Drive, that is withdrawn and will not be discussed.
Thank you. Citizen concerns and comments. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience who would like to talk about something that is not an agenda item for tonight. Do we have anybody? Nope. Okay, moving on to the consent items. Should I list them all, or?
We can flip through them. Jim usually does read them off.
Okay. Docket number SCBA 15-2, Sure Staff, appearance approval of a wall sign. SCBA 15-3, Dunkin' Donuts, 749 North Milwaukee Avenue, appearance approval of a wall sign. SCBA 15-4, Lake Regional Medical, 140 East Hintz, for a freestanding and wall sign. SCBA 15-5, another Lake Regional Medical building at 723 Chaddock Drive for a freestanding sign. And SCBA 15-6, another Lake Regional Medical at 690 Chaddock Drive, appearance of a freestanding and wall signs.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Stylen, seconded by Commissioner Dorband. Please call the roll.
I'm Commissioner Stylen. I vote yes. Commissioner Dorband.
Yes.
Commissioner Powers.
Yes.
Commissioner Zangara.
Yes.
Acting Chairman Johnson.
Yes.
It's 5 yes, 1 absent, and 1 vacancy. And if I could make a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
You know, a couple of weeks ago, Sure Staff came in with a sign that was kind of, I'll just say, lackluster, and we asked them to reconsider and come back with a slightly different sign. And to me, the sign that they came back with is exceptional. I mean, it is markedly different than their original proposal, and I would publicly like to thank them for taking the extra effort to do a really nice, classy job. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree. That's a much improved sign. All right. Moving on to the items for review. Item 7A has been withdrawn, so we'll go to 7B. Docket number 2015-1A, B, and C, and PC 15-2. This is a continued from the January 22nd hearing, Kraus Lane Townhomes. 2015-1A is rezoning from R2 single-family residential to R4 multiple-family residential. 2015-1B, variations from Title 19 zoning relating to access and building setbacks. 2015-1C is variations from Title 17, planning, subdivision, and developments relating to cul-de-sac dimensions. And PC 15-2, site plan and appearance review of a townhome development. Is the petitioner here to give us an update on what's changed since the last time?
And as the petitioner comes forward, I just have a couple of staff notes on this. Petitioner submitted updated materials, which you have in your packets. Minor modification to the site plan, shifting the parking spaces south roughly 5 feet, eliminating the sidewalk that had been directly behind the visitor parking. You've also received updated information, the executive summary of the environmental report, excerpts from the amended easement agreement. You've received the updated landscape plan. Just real quick before the petitioner gets into his presentation, there are a few staff notes on this. At the last meeting we had discussed the design of utilities and the extent to which some of the utilities would remain the responsibility of the homeowners association. I did check in with the Public Works Department. The water main would be maintained by the Village of Wheeling. That would be the east-west portion of the water main, not the connections that go to the homes. The storm sewer and sanitary sewer would remain under the maintenance of the association. On the landscape plan, there's a note in the staff report regarding the red oaks. The red oak in this location does not, in the opinion of the village forester, have enough space to spread at its full maturity. So the village forester's recommendation would be to switch out the red oaks. I think there's 2 on the plan. They're too close to the houses for how big they get. And then we did look at the, there was a question during the last hearing. There's a wedge of property that appears to be in between the subject property and the homes that are on Edgewood. On the survey provided by your surveyor, it runs from about a 2-foot gap between the properties on the west end all the way up to about a 6-foot gap on the far east end. We checked through the subdivision records, we checked through the other records that we had available, and we did not find that property. So we would suggest a condition in this case that your surveyor confirm the origin of that. We have nothing else that shows that there's a gap between the properties. And with that, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Chris Winogrodzki, architect. The last meeting, there were like 3 issues that hasn't been maybe properly addressed or fully addressed. And as far as I understand, there was an environmental, there was an easement agreement, and there was road maintenance. And I would like to briefly, a little bit more explain. I presented some exhibits in regards to this matter, and which I have on me, and I presented to the village. We did 2 phases of the environmental analysis, and in the first one, phase 1 of the environmental, the company that we hire did not identify any on-site or off-site recognized environmental conditions, and in the phase 2, we have evaluated the soil beneath the subject property, and the material that we have were presented show us that there was no environmental, and we don't have any effect on the soil in regards to the environmental. The conclusion was stated that the soil assessment did not affect chemical concentration in excess of applicable tier. I have some highlighted, and there's Exhibit A and Exhibit B of ECS Midwest LCC, and I highlighted this report that especially in the first one, we don't observe any environmental danger. Or I mean, if you have additional questions, I'm more than happy to answer this. But just briefly, to the second, the easement agreement. I went back to the plat of subdivision, which was issued on October 12, 1960. And this plat of subdivision clearly, provides an easement for egress and egress for the designated land. There was and you can find this in Exhibit C1, there was additional addendum or amendment on February 1st, 87, which was talking about utility lines and basically that all the pipes and the additional utility line could be placed in this easement area. What was more important is that we're talking this amendment that the area of this utilities, we're talking, give me a second. In the paragraph 2 states that the use of easement area is not confined to the present uses of the land. So any new users could, do any construction work on this easement in regards to the utility, water, sewer, and so on. In regards to the road maintenance, talked to the owner, basically the idea was the new association will completely take responsibility for the road maintenance. There won't be nothing, pushed to owner 5, 4, or 3 in regards to the maintenance. The association will take fully responsibility for the road maintenance.
Excuse me, Mr. Vinogransky, you're referring to the road as it is on the property?
The new road, correct. Starting from the property of owner 2.
So the section here from
That's correct.
This through the proposed cul-de-sac?
The new area that will be basically is on the property of the association.
Okay. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, basically, I think there was this 3 issue. If you have any additional questions, comments.
Do you want to walk through any of the site plan, landscape plan, anything else?
Well, we revised the landscaping plan. Basically, we hire a landscaping designer or architect and to revise the plan. And there was an issue with the fence on the north side, and that we'll have that question maybe to the board. We would like to maybe have a mix of the cedar fence and some maybe shrubs or bushes or green area that will give a little bit more friendly expression to the site. That's what we're thinking right now. There will be, of course, the question of existing trees. We still don't know if we can keep them or if we will have to replace them. That, yes, we will proceed with this one. One thing that we were unable to do was the photometric, lighting plan. We have an issue with our light fixtures that has been about 15 feet towards the last. There was 30 feet in height, and we sent this to the factory, to give us a new photometric plan. They were promised us to have this by Monday. Today is Thursday. We still don't have it. So as soon as we get it, we'll submit. We'll follow exactly the recommendation of the manufacturer, how many light fixture we have to put on the sides to spread enough, light. But I would still like to ask you for the permission to grant us the variance at this time. Yeah, I changed the parking spot south of the pound, and we revised the elevations. We eliminate this siding or cedar siding, although so. I forget what it was. Basically, we put at the bottom stone per honor the recommendation. We had a hardy board going down to the ground. We eliminate the hardy board and put along the bottom stone material. And that's basically what we have, all the changes.
Is that all you have for now?
Yeah, that's what I have for now.
All right, this is still a open public hearing, so if there are any, did anyone sign up?
Marie?
Please give your name and address to the secretary.
My name's Marie James. I live at 319 Kraus Lane.
And raise your right hand. Is this testimony you're about to give the truth?
Right. Okay, I live in the first house on Kraus Lane, which is, I think, number 3?
Yeah.
Okay, I've lived there for 62 years. I've maintained the road, as of the other 2 houses, and we're wondering why we would have to pay assessment fee. No, they want an assessment fee. We have to pay that. I mean, this is, now, I was married to Chris Kraus Jr., whose father owned all this property. The ponds were put in there because Mr. Kraus owned a bait store in the front by Milwaukee Avenue. And what they have done there, well, there was a road dividing the 2 ponds, which this one was a shorter one, that was a huge one. And the stuff that they have dumped in there, which nobody okayed, is unbelievable. Tires, tar, burnt lumber, refrigerator, car, furnace. Now, after this was all filled, there was a young couple at the 5th house wanted to build a 3-roomed house. And they came and they were denied it because the ground wasn't strong enough. Now, if the ground was not strong enough for that house, how can they put all these townhouses there? And seeing they're going to put out all this money for everything, why don't they just buy us out? I know we want a huger price, but they're still making more money if they put 4 townhouses on my property. And there's a gas line down, all the way down from Milwaukee Avenue to our houses on the north side of the drive. I guess that's about all. Why can't they just build houses or something that not so heavy on there that they would sink? I guess that's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you.
Susan Barnes?
My name is Susan Barnes. I live at 321 Kraus Lane. The homeowner is named John Seberg. who is currently in Arizona, else he would have been here.
Excuse me, did you testify last time?
I did, I didn't need, yes, I'm the tree lady. Would you like me to swear again? I'd be more than happy to. John and I have talked at length about this, and I have a statement that that I've written down for him. One thing I did want to mention, though, about the existing pond, and no one's said anything about this. Right now, they are up at the front at 325 Milwaukee Avenue. There's one office building, which was originally going to be 2 office buildings. And so in order for them to get, them being the Stormwater Management Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago, in order for them to give approval for the second building to be built, a pipe was installed from the existing pond, a 12-foot diameter pipe was installed from the existing pond out to the river. And so when our pond fills up, the water flows right into the river. If you take away the pond now, that will have to be taken into consideration because the water, we get a lot of water. As you probably know, the highest point in Wheeling is right next to Kilcoynes in the now empty building. And in any event, and Edgewood is also lower ground. So the street Edgewood, which is directly north of us, there is a lot of water back there. A couple of years ago when we had all that water, things were very wet and flooded. I looked out the back door and there was in fact a woman in a canoe in the backyard. The property itself didn't flood, but it came very close. We were happy about that. But so water is an issue. Now I would like to read actually John's statement to the group. Okay, this is out of the mouth of John Sieber. The builder's only concern is to salvage a failed project. Had they properly done their homework and researched the worthiness of the land, a street that would meet current codes and safety standards, and all the other village requirements needed, they would have never purchased these properties in the first place. Why should the longtime residents of Kraus Lane, the business at 325 North Milwaukee Avenue, and the Village of Wheeling have to make endless concessions and variances to building codes for only 8 townhomes? Are the liabilities to the village and their residents worth what little tax revenue the project can provide? So that was his statement. He's not here to answer or respond to that. Although he will be if we continue this in the future. He'll be back sometime next month, although I don't know when. I'd like to close. 2 streets north of us is a street called Prairie View. It has a really beautiful townhouse development on it. It's got an enormous turnaround in there, the beautiful buildings, and something like that. I don't think our land all encompassing would be large enough to hold a development like that, but that's really a beautiful project, and something like that would be more viable, more residents to spread the costs, more residents to make a community. I looked up a couple of things. Median home prices in Wheeling are about $140,000, maybe $175,000 listings. Median income is $60,000. And of course, these are just mediums, but if the price point is $300,000, really, I wonder if that's not maybe priced out of the market in this neighborhood. Just curious what happens then if he has all this existing, if he builds 8 townhouses there and then holds them, who pays the property taxes? I know he does, but that would be a pretty big chunk of money, I'm sure. I just don't know that, I mean, and there is plenty of open real estate available now. That big development at Wolf in Milwaukee has got a building that's almost completely empty, as I understand it. And you hate to stand up here and say, no, 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 I don't want this, I don't want this. And so there should be some alternative. We get it that he bought land, he wants to make a development, he wants to make money, it's the American dream, all yada, yada. And I know that the Village of Wheeling owns a lot of land, and I'm proposing, and maybe this is a bit unusual, maybe there could be some sort of a swap for this land, which is probably not viable, and some other land which might be more viable, so that he could build a project that resembles more the Prairie View project, which is really a beautiful project. I recommend driving down there if you've never been down there. It's really a lovely little neighborhood. That would be more suitable and have enough buildings to go around. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I see you have a village forester now. Is that a new position in this department?
No, it's not in our department. It's in the Public Works Department, but
Okay.
it's not terrible.
I just happened to hear that there was a tree guy.
Tree lady. We do. Matt Friedman? Yes, he was.
Matt Friedman, I'm an attorney. I represent the owners of the building at 325 North Milwaukee, which is the front office building right on Milwaukee Avenue. I want to respond. I have 4 points to make. I'll try to keep it brief. I want to respond first, though, to what the petitioner mentioned about the easement, responding to what this board raised last month. The issue isn't whether or not there is an easement. There is. There's no question that there's an easement. What the question is what's the easement for? And when the easement was originally made in I think the middle 50s, then there was a subsequent plat, I think around 1960. That easement contemplated access across Krause Lane for single-family homes. That's what it was designed for. We're now talking about keeping the easement the same, but changing the circumstances, changing the zoning, changing the density around the easement. Let me just illustrate the point by taking an extreme example, but I think it'll help illustrate it. Let's say that the petitioner wanted to put in a Walmart. Obviously, it wouldn't fit, but assume that it would. I think everybody would agree that the original easement wasn't designed for a use like that. Obviously, the density is completely different, the use is different, the zoning's different, everything's different. I think everybody would agree that's not what the easement was originally for in the 1950s. Obviously now the order of magnitude is smaller, but the point's still the same. The petitioner wants to change the zoning from what it currently is, increase the density, but say that the easement still applies, and it doesn't. The next thing that I want to just remind everybody of is that Krause is a private road. It's not a public road. And so I think that the village is treading on thin ice by trying to make some sort of determination about what a private easement on a private road applies to. It's based on an agreement between the parties, and since it isn't a public road, I think it's dangerous for the village to make a determination on who has ingress and egress rights. Shortly after last winter, when we had the brutal winter last year, the owners of the office building got a call from the village inspector. The inspector said that there's a pothole on our portion of Krause. It was probably about the size of a salad plate, a Frisbee, something like that. She said, could you repair it? And it was repaired within 48 hours. The village was so concerned with one single pothole, which was promptly repaired, but I'm concerned that the village doesn't seem to care about all the damage that's going to be caused by all the heavy machinery traversing across this road, the increased traffic, the increased density from these townhomes. The road is going to be annihilated, both physically by the project and the volume of cars, and also just in terms of its congestion. I can imagine the phone calls from the inspector, the same inspector that called about one pothole. She's going to call back and say, the road's been destroyed. Well, of course it's been destroyed. We have a huge project that was approved at a much greater density that's in existence now. And there's no question that the road's going to be destroyed. One final item. As you know, this issue of easement and access was raised at the last meeting. Obviously, we think it's quite a significant issue. One would have thought, certainly I would have thought, that during the past 3 weeks, or however much time has elapsed since the last meeting, that a representative from the petitioner would have called, would have emailed, would have written saying, hey, We know that you think there's an issue here. Why don't we sit down and see if we can work it out? Maybe we can, maybe we can't, but at least one would think it's worth a phone call. The owners received no phone call. The number is on a sign right on the building, right outside the building. No email, no letter, nothing. And this is when they're trying to get approval. I can only imagine how neighborly things are going to be once they're not asking for anything anymore. So just to play the string out, you know, if I can stand up here and talk till I'm blue in the face, but if this ends up moving forwards, I think that the owners of the office building will have no choice. And remember, there's a handful of small businesses in the office building that are going to have big problems if this goes forward because of the traffic. I think that the owners are going to have no choice than to file an injunction, file a lawsuit against everybody involved, against the petitioners, possibly against the village for approving it, and let a court decide about the easement. That's all I have, unless anybody else has any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Who signed up? You can open it.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this? No? Okay, will the petitioner like to respond to any of these comments?
There were some issues, again, with the environmental and with the soil. I have in front of me a soil report done in October 26, 2012. Designed at that time for, I think, 10 townhouses that was proposed. And in regards to the capacity of the land, the soil report stating is 1.25 to 1.8 ton per square foot. 2,000 is, 2 ton is the average. So we're a little bit below for the standard footings. The recommendation of the testing agency is here to put a slab on grade, and that's basically what will be designed. If there will be any concerns, of course, we will follow the recommendation of the testing company. But that shouldn't affect the construction. And I think, you know, for the townhouses, you know, the cost is much better spread than for the new construction of single-family house. I've heard a lot of, you know, about this environmental, putting the dams, and I spoke, I think, to John about a year ago. He explained me everything about this. Everyone is talking. The only thing would I have, and we did this, you know, the test, we didn't find anything that was environmental, not, you know, friendly. There could be some debris, but like Bernie said in last meeting, this has nothing to do with the capacity of the land. So I think we're trying to put the new road, much nicer road. We're trying to develop a property which is, well, I don't know, 20 years ago, maybe even more, you know, vacant. And some neighbors would like to have here maybe, you know, a park, but I don't think so that, you know, the village can afford to do this. So it's a private land with a private road, a private easement. And going back to the attorney of the first owner, to the owner of the Milwaukee, as far as I know, at the beginning of the project, the attorney of the owner contacted the person who owns this business, and basically there was no communication. He didn't want to agree completely, you know, with the project. So we stopped of this. In regards to the easement, I don't know, you know, how we can interpret it. You know, it's an easement for egress and egress, and that was done in 1960. You can find in all my exhibits that this is, you know, clearly stated, and in the paragraph 1 of easement agreements, they grant all owners, each to each other, an easement to the land, right of way, upon, across, and under easement, for purpose of laying, constructing, maintaining, operating, renewing, replacing, and removing sewer pipe and utility lines to connect to the buildings located on or to be constructed on the land in all necessary utilities. We're talking about the future. We're not talking about the existing only lands. You know, someone was thinking in the future that we would like to rezoning this and put more than 2 single-family houses. Yes, because it will be hard, you know, almost impossible to put 2 houses over there. There is not such a land value, like, you know, one person said. The income is too small. So we have to spread this, and the idea was when we're putting townhouses that we can lower the cost and enable people, you know, to move in. And I think that's basically what I have right now.
There was a comment made that I don't think you responded to regarding the potential for an assessment against the homes to the east. The first speaker had mentioned the potential for assessing the other homes toward the road project.
Well, we're expanding. We're putting more than 30-foot wide roads. So, you know, the half of the road, which will be 15 feet, will be still able, you know, everybody can use this during the construction. There could be some maybe, like the attorney mentioned, you know, the damage to the front portion of the road on the east, on the west property side. But of course, the owner is responsible, and we will agree that all the patching and everything will be restored, you know, to original conditions. The owners to the east side will have fully access. I don't see any reason that there shouldn't be any problem. The road right now is 16 foot wide, so we'll leave 15 feet. That's plenty, I think. And later on, they will achieve, you know.
I think the question is specifically the future cost. There was a question that was raised at the last hearing regarding the cost. Your proposal had an assessment to the 8 townhome owners, and there was a statement made at the last hearing regarding that I believe it was interpreted at least that the single-family homes would also be part of that assessment. Is that? Well,
there was right now in this amendment agreement that every is responsible for this road maintenance. But with the new road, the association will take fully responsible for the part of the road. There is no cost to the owners on the east side. 0. And we have special you know, agreements, you know, standard, I think, that
I think that covered the other questions.
the Exhibit D, yeah, we put.
Okay. Yeah. All right, we'll move on to the commissioners and see what they want to bring up. And we'll start with Commissioner Dorband.
Thank you. Well, I do have a few questions. First of all, one of the ones that I wanted to thank the forester for looking over these plans. That was great. The environmental issue, I'm sorry, some of these notes are a little strange on this computer tonight, but in one piece of it, it does say that, let me find it, that there was no stains. They did not observe stains or corrosion to floors, walls, or ceilings. But then later, it says the ECS did not gain access to the interior of the residence at the time of the site. So how would you know that there was no stains on the walls or the ceilings or the floors if they didn't get access to the homes? I'm a little confused.
Well, I'm a little too. Where do you have this? Because
It's the part that you added, it's page 19 of the ECS report.
which the phase, exhibit A or B, which is first, one or two?
It's 6.0, the site and area,
Page 68 of the packet.
and then 6.2, and it goes on.
Well. If you can, we're talking about.
It's the part that's in yellow.
I think just, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, I think you're looking at the Phase 1 report. I think it has the format of the report is almost like a checklist of oil sheen observed on the water, it goes
Yes.
down.
This one.
Yes, yeah, I think it has like a checklist of all the different possible things, and I think on that checklist, there's a line item for a structure, but there isn't a structure on the property. I think that's what
Okay, they weren't referring to the homes, they were referring to any
I
additional
think it was just
structure that would
I
have
think it
been
was
on the
just
property.
in the checklist, there's
Okay, because that was
a
not
line.
clear to me at all.
I think that is pretty confusing to leave that.
Okay, that was confusing. Okay, the other piece, you said you did some soil investigation or checking out of that pond. I'm confused. At what point did you look at this? Because there's been testimony given that there's all kinds of debris in there. And I just want to make sure that we're addressing that, because if there's debris in there that is harmful, it needs to be removed.
Exactly, and when I was talking last year, or a year ago, to John, the owner, I think the property in the middle, he described me this, and basically he was the reason that we did this. There was no red flag that something is here wrong, but he was so concerned that we make this analysis. We took this company, we went through the phase 1 and through the phase 2. Because the company even recommended after phase 1, to do the phase another stage. They made a soil test boring. They went deep and they checked this, and we were concerned because if we start to do any construction and we find something, that there will be an environmental poison, there will be a horrible cost, to the construction, because we have to remove this and store and so on. So if this would be the case, we won't even start the job.
Well, you said they did soil boring.
Yes.
Where did they do it? I mean, because the way these folks are saying, there's all this debris in there.
We have.
So where did they do the soil boring that we can kind of?
Yes, and I specifically told them that there was a pound that, and I was told them that there was a lot of debris based on the neighbors put into this. So we checked this, and we have 170 or something like pages. Everything is over there. I mean, every boring is over there, and basically this is only just briefly analyze what they found. They didn't find anything, but you can go deeper into this book, and we have 2 big books. Then you can check and analyze every boring. There's every boring which is tested. I mean.
Right. Okay.
Those are soil test boring that were done not for the environmental analysis. Those are boring for the construction.
Okay.
Oh, these were not the environmental borings?
These were the ones, the exhibit that was traced for this was the.
What exhibit?
Was the Phase 2 report. Those were the two borings that were listed in the Phase 2 report.
I'm sorry.
There's a aerial photo exhibit. So to create this, we just overlaid the 2 of them.
Oh, okay.
And left.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So one of these, I don't know, I don't remember from the report which one is which, but one of these was a 12-foot and one was a 10-foot, I believe.
Something like this. They were the soil test boring was for the geotechnical analysis was done by 12-foot deep. So.
And as I read through all the documents that came from previous years, I'm a little confused at the way it's written, that it's talking about the easement and it's talking about who the egress and who gets, and agreement for people to go across back and forth, but I don't understand how, the way it's written, it basically talks about maintenance and things like that. I don't maybe I'm misreading something that I don't quite understand, where it's talking about the full access for all parties. It basically talks about repairs and easements and things, or for repairs and for maintenance. So the other thing I'm confused about is what happens if a piece of this road, because now you have 3 parcels basically, that are, what happens if one section needs to be repaired and whichever piece that is, and they say, well, I don't have the money, but it has to be repaired because the village is going to come in and say, hey, it's got to be done. Now who's responsible for getting that done, and how do you orchestrate collecting the money?
Okay. One more time, we're talking about 2 things. We're talking about the first easement. There was a plot of subdivision issue in 1960. There was nothing about road maintenance, about any utilities lines, nothing. There was only talking about egress and egress.
That's not what I read, though.
Oh, yes.
It talks about maintenance in there.
No, there was an amendment to the easement in 1987. But the first easement was issued in 1960. And that was basically the easement. That was the first time we were talking about the easement. That was original easement. As far as I know, the amendment was done because I think the owner, the storefront owner, would like to do some underground work. And at that time, the road was basically, gravel, and he determined that he will pave the road for free, basically, in order to be able to construct any road construction, any utilities. And that was
Are you talking about the one from 1987, or are you talking
87,
about before?
when 87. The original first in the 60 was only for egress and egress. And there's the easement. That was the first role of the easement. There was no talking about the maintenance, utility pipes, nothing. It was just strictly that this part of land is an easement which we can communicate to.
Andrew, we don't have that piece of it, correct?
It's this,
Unless
this
I'm
piece.
missing it. No, I don't mean that. I mean, what was the, because the easement,
This is the easement, it says it's a private road.
so there's, but we don't have anything
This is
like
Exhibit
this.
C1 that I added. This is this part.
Right, but
Yeah.
what I was looking for was something like this
That's
documentation.
not how they did it.
That's not how they
The
did it.
easement
Okay,
is
that's
recorded on the plat
fine.
that shows for private road. Then that agreement references it, that was for ingress and egress.
Got it.
And
Okay,
then adds to it for the maintenance.
okay, okay. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry, I just wanted to understand.
So that's what I'm trying to say. There were 2 parts. One is the 1960, which is talking about the role of the easement as a private road, which can access to owner 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Now, in regards to the maintenance, in 87, there was a road that was established that all owners are responsible for the maintenance of the road. Now, with this, our new project, basically what we're taking away, we're taking any participation of the owner 5, 4, and 3. They don't have to pay anything for the maintenance. The owner 1 is still responsible.
In our facts of findings from last time you were here, you said that the homeowners would take a portion of that, be responsible. That is no longer true, correct?
That's correct. We changed
Okay,
this.
I just want to make
Yes,
sure
yes.
that's in our minutes.
We changed this. We discussed with the
These
owner.
homeowners are not going to be responsible anymore.
Correct.
Okay, okay, go ahead.
I was talking about that's what was in the amendment in 87, and that's what I was keeping after talking to the owner, and his lawyer decided no more. The association will be responsible for the new road, and the owners of 5, 4, and 3 will be not anymore responsible.
So owner 1 is going to be responsible for his.
For his portion.
His portion. the next portions are the townhouses, and they're gonna be responsible for theirs, correct? And owners 3, 4, and 5 are gonna be responsible for theirs, correct?
Well, they won't be responsible for the part of the new road. I mean, whatever is on their property, I mean, this is their property. I mean, we're talking about the new road construction, starting from the west side of the owner 2 to the east side of the owner 5.
And how are they going to be assessed for that?
Well, this has to be worked out with the attorneys, I think. We have a agreement here. There was exhibit, I think D. This is a standard that will determine exactly what has to be done. I mean,
Mr. Winograd, I don't think your interpretation of
Is
that
right.
part of the easement is correct. I think the language of the easement states that the owners of each lot are responsible for the portion of the road on that lot. So the assessment for the townhomes then, if townhomes were to be built, would cover the new portion of the road, which is the wider portion of the road with curbs.
that's correct.
Meaning that they would then, among those 8 homes, be responsible for what is now in front of the 2 vacant parcels?
Yes.
Right. And
Yes.
then the owners of the other lots would still be responsible for the.
For the small portion which is on the.
Correct.
On the east, yes.
Okay, so that is your understanding of
Yes.
the easement language, okay. Sorry, go on.
No, thank you. I'm just still confused about this one section in here about the maintenance and how is this going to work and who's going to end up being responsible for getting this done and who's going to pay and how you're going to get this all. That still has got, and I would assume that's a village issue, Andrew, that, because that just has got me very confused, that
No,
whole section number 5.
No, the village issue on this, I think, relates to the subdivision, the future subdivision. The village suggestion on this is that in order to proceed, if the townhomes were to be constructed, we're suggesting that they be required to replat this area to demonstrate how the townhomes would be owned. Would they be common property? Would they be divided sort of like a condo that looks like a townhome? In that document, they would have to describe the maintenance responsibility of the association, and that's the draft document that the petitioner has provided. So when you look at the exhibit D, that's the purpose of that. They have not provided a plat that goes with that yet. They would need to do that prior to any sort of sale, any sort of transaction.
And the other question, Mr. Friedman, I believe, brought up the fact that there is an issue with his portion of, or his client's piece of that land. So where are we with that?
The village is not making a determination on it. The village reviewed that with respect to the ability of the petitioner to go ahead with this petition. That's the extent of the village review of this. As far as the zoning code is concerned, our interpretation was that that requires a variation to use that form of access to Milwaukee Avenue. Under our zoning code, our interpretation of the letter, the zoning code was that in order to go to construction on this lot that has a private road access, they would need a variation from the zoning code. We read through the easement language and felt that it satisfied the requirements for proceeding to this application, but we did not make a determination as to the original intent of the easement.
And I've noticed all the way through, as I brought up again before, that in many of these documents, especially in the declaration, in several places, Kraus Lane is spelled incorrectly. So those have to be, I mean, they should all be consistent. Kraus should be spelled one way or the other. And,
I noticed this too. I spelled this, I think, correctly, but somewhere, I see the difference.
It's spelled in a number of places incorrectly, so that needs to be cleaned up. I'm sure I have more. And in regards to the declaration, at some place in that declaration, and Mallory, you're going to have to help me out if we can do this legally, somewhere in this declaration, I would like to see us point out what a PUD means to these homeowners, a definition of what they are responsible for, you know, as far as they'll be responsible for the lights, and they'll be responsible for the street, and they'll be responsible for, you know, all of that, what the village doesn't give them. Can we do that?
I don't know if we can require that what it goes into their homeowner association declaration. That's a private contract between the homeowners themselves and the contractor. That, I think, would just exceed the scope of what we'd be granting them. That's a private contract.
Okay.
I mean, we can certainly suggest that in order to,
Yeah, if
or
nothing
that the
else.
road would be common area or, the common grounds, that I would think that they would include that in there.
Okay. That's just my suggestion, that it be noted what a PUD is so that these homeowners know what they're getting into. Because we get
Definitely.
people that don't have a clue.
That's what the XBD will provide, and everything will be clarified with the new.
Sure, and I think that I believe, Smoothie, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think the state would require the list of what the common elements are, what they are responsible for, and this the petition in front of you does not include a planned unit development action. It is strictly to rezone to R4, and then the variation attached to that. So it's a site plan and appearance review, a variation, and a rezoning.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Styland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately, I have a lot of things. Andrew, I got a question on your last comment about the land use and the common property and how it's going to be done, handled. Makes a big concern of mine in how that property is going to be used, and things like, will the property owners be able to put in fences across their backyards, or will that be common open area, etc.? Because I'd like to have a much better understanding of how that property is going to be used and access around it, etc. Is there any chance, or would that be something normally that we would see on either a site plan or a plot of survey or something as part of all these things that we're doing?
If I'm understanding your question correctly, the development, if approved, would be in an R4 district, and it would be held under the multifamily development standards of the zoning code, which would mean that a new fence for the development would require site plan and appearance approval. So unless it was specifically stated during the original review, of course, if it was an extremely minor project, then no. But most changes to the site plan of a multifamily development require site plan and appearance approval through the commission at minimum.
Yeah, okay, I understand that, but would we normally see those kinds of designations as a PUD or a condo association, whatever you want to call this, comes through our commission normally? Would we normally see those common areas and stuff documented on either a site plan, landscaping plan, plot survey or something? Would we normally see those?
You're asking, do you normally see the declaration for a homeowners association?
No, just the lines drawn out on a site plan.
Oh, when you see the a plat of subdivision,
Yeah.
it'll typically show the building footprint is shown as a non-easement area, and the rest of it is shown as an easement area. A lot of the time you'll be able to pick it out that way. The roadway would be shown, but it's not to the level of detail that I think you're describing.
Well, I mean, just more where the common areas are, where the individual property ownership areas are.
You would see the ownership area. What is defined as a common element or a limited common element is normally spelled out in the declaration itself.
And not on any plan that we would normally see.
You would see that if you picked through the subdivision documents, sometimes parking spaces are a limited common element or a common element, or they are defined as owned by a unit, so they might have their own little legal description on them. So you don't usually see much in terms of the common element descriptions.
Okay.
I'm not sure what else I can.
Okay, I guess your answer to me is really no. It's not something that we would normally visually see and be aware of, normally, unless we read final legalese, fine print, and...
I think that I can agree with that.
Okay, thank you. The other question that I had was, and it was one of the things that Pam kind of brought out, could this be a PUD as opposed to a rezoning and variations and whatever? I'm kind of against the variation route because all the variations talk about hardships and setbacks and width of roads and all these other technical things that are not, in my belief, hardships. Build the house or build the property, build the building 2 feet shorter, and now you can accommodate a full road. If you're 15 feet side yard setback or whatever, well, make the whole division 15 feet shorter. It's not a hardship because of what's there. It's a hardship because the property owner wants to build a bigger building. If we go the PUD route, then we can trade off some of those concerns by getting additional amenities like more trees on the property, more accommodations of some kind, and try to balance things out. Can this property, could it be a PUD?
You could not, without also rezoning it. The PUD is not allowed in the zoning district that it's in. You certainly could require more trees. If you have a question of the number of trees on this property, you certainly could do that even without the PUD designation. It is not eligible though under the R2 district to even apply for a PUD. It would be under the R4, but of course that would require the rezoning that they're here for.
Yeah, I'm not concerned with rezoning because that isn't a variation. I just don't like to give variations for something that man has caused, and rather do the PUD that doesn't require variations, and we can ask for some other amenities to compensate for those losses, if you understand. Anyway, that's how I would like to see it go, because I'm not in favor of variations. But I'll continue with my questions. One of the concerns that we had last time was on the patios, and the size of the patios was brought up. And I see the patios have been on the plan, and then I heard that the air conditioning units that we asked to be shown on the plan as well were not shown, but are going to be installed on the patios. Is that?
No, not on the patios, no. There will be in the, I think, on 2 on each side. Those are details, I think, that could be determined later on, but definitely they won't be on the patio. They will be next to, and once I'm going to the detailed drawing, we will determine based on the code where we would like to, put the units. So I don't want to have an obstruction to the owners that, you know, I'm concerned about them.
You keep talking about this as a preliminary plan and it's not finalized. We're here to define the final plan. Now, if during construction there comes up with something that, you know, there's a water main present that wasn't, and you need to move something, that's a construction, what do we call it, Andrew? We have a term for it, but
Construction change.
a construction change. But right now, we want to see where things are going from a final standpoint.
Well, we're going right now for the rezoning, and I'm not quite sure what rezoning has to do with the air conditioner, quite frankly.
Because you're also asking for site plan and appearance approval of the project. Now, if you'd prefer not to do site plan and appearance approval and only talk about rezoning, we could do that right now.
Well, the site plan, you know, determine the location of the building, the patio, but
That doesn't have anything to do with rezoning. So if you're only here to talk about rezoning, we can just eliminate all the other items on the agenda and just talk about rezoning and cover these other items when you have more detailed, definitive plans.
well, we're planning to put 8 townhouses here, and
This is not a concept plan discussion. This is, to the best of my knowledge, Andrew, the finalization of the site plan.
That's correct. They're applying for a.
well, I have to be aware, if this has to go to such a detail, yes, then we have to locate the air conditioning units. I mean,
Did you state at the last meeting that they would be on the patio?
no, they would be next to the patio.
Next to the patio.
Next to
Okay,
the patio.
I remembered it. Maybe I miswrote that in the
Because
report.
there were 2 on each side of the building, and 2 of us were thinking the middle house will be, you know, somewhere at the
So
center.
next,
Yes,
next to the patios?
and that's what the,
And these are standard residential size units?
correct. I mean, we're talking about 2,000 square feet houses, there will be small units.
And the plan is to locate 2 of them together?
Each on each side of the building and 2 in the middle, the center of the building. Yeah, between this part here.
So here
exactly.
and then here?
Yes, yes,
So these 2 would be for these 2 units and then 2 for these 2 units?
correct,
And then the mirror image on the other?
exactly.
I'd like to see that on a site plan so I can do some measurements and stuff. My next question is on the west end of the roadway that abuts the Milwaukee Road, the Milwaukee Avenue property. Andrew, if you could zoom in on the site plan on that area, there appears to be a little wedge that blocks in that bottom kind of, it's on the north side of the road, but the
Drive.
the drive, yeah.
Get it up there, Andrew. That one, 24.
Yeah, there's existing one.
There you go.
I hit the wrong button.
There it is. That wedge.
Yeah, can you see it down there, that little wedge that,
Down here.
Yeah, I see it. I'm just zooming in.
you know, that appears to block off it's difficult for me to tell, a certain percentage of the road. What is that little wedge-based thing that's blocking the road? And are we just going to let it sit there in the open? Are we going to have any warning sign that the road, half of the road ends right there? I guess I'm kind of asking Andrew.
Is that something that's there now?
Yes.
Yes?
It's on the
Is
back
that-
end of the parking lot.
Actually answered that because I measured that today. That is part of a parking barrier when you first pull into Cross Lane, and the office building is right here. That is part of the outline, if you will, a concrete kind of a peninsula where you can park your cars. The building is this way, and then you can park some cars this way, and then you can go along. So that's parking on Cross Lane facing north, or you can park on Milwaukee Avenue facing east. So that is actually 16 feet long and is where parking is.
So just to repeat that, the feature here is at the end of the row of parking, and it sort of defines this perpendicular parking row here, more or less.
Yes.
And the roadway that is being proposed, a good portion of it bumps into that,
Right. And
whatever that thing is. How are we going to accommodate? We can't make it green space because there's kind of a driveway right there. We need to put up some warning signs or something that somebody doesn't go driving down the now wide street and all of a sudden bumps into
there's not enough room to make a 30-foot wide street at that point, unless you want to take parking from him, and I'm pretty sure that's not going to go over there.
but the street is going to be 30-foot wide.
Not there, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It's only 23 foot wide.
Not if you zoom in on it.
Huh?
If you zoom in on it, there's a curb there.
It's a curb.
Yeah, if you were to go straight down the street, you would hit the curb that's right in front of you.
Yep.
There isn't 30 feet between the end of the curb.
I agree. So what kind of signage are we going to require to keep people from driving down that Kraus Lane on the right-hand side of the street going west and bumping into a curb that's...
There's a fence that comes all the way down here.
Oh, a fence. I did not see a fence down there.
The fence line, it's gonna come all the way down to that. That fence
So-
goes all the way down.
So are you referring to something like a road narrows sign, something that shows visually? Commissioner
Yeah,
Stylen?
so, I mean,
Fence.
we gotta
Like a road narrows?
we gotta put something
That's on his
there
property.
to,
Right, that's what Terry's talking about, coming down here. But there's a fence there.
Do you understand that question? I'm
Yes,
asking?
yes,
So
there is
something
something.
Like a road
I think we
narrows
have to
type
talk
of
to the engineer and to the village engineer, how we can address the best way, this issue. Sign or a little bit, I think, could be redesigned a little bit, this area.
or one of those steel bumper things or something that, I just don't want somebody who doesn't live in the area to drive down the street and all of a sudden,
Well,
they're driving on
definitely,
the street.
We have to put some warnings here, definitely, and we'll address with the engineer.
Okay, thank you. And I thought I heard somewhere in the testimony about, Andrew, I think you talked about a property line gap. I'm assuming that was the gap that I had a concern with last week.
That's
that
correct.
the lines don't seem to match up.
They diverge, yes.
And, I went through the plot of survey of 1960 and tried to draw on a plan the property lines, and the front and rear property lines are not parallel. They are kind of trapezoidally shaped, and on the later on addition that you did, the property
I can
lines
see
are not parallel either, and it was strange on the sample that you showed, Andrew, the bottom, the southmost property line is indeed straight and well, I'll just say straight, but the north property line, if you draw a straight line from one end to the other, there's a marked bow in the village's GIS property lines. So I'm not sure where the property lines for all the properties are, but I would like to see a site plan drawing that shows exactly where the legal property lines are, and I don't want to end up with a 5-foot gap between the properties.
Yeah, we will address this. I will address with the civil engineer and our surveyor exactly, which line it is and double check this.
Okay. My next question is on irrigation. I did see in the landscaping plan that irrigation provided by Wheeling requirements at all turf and planting areas excluding the detention area.
That's correct.
Can you tell me where and how the irrigation is going to be controlled? Is it going to be individual property owners will have timers or something on them to control their section of the turf and landscaping area, or will it be centrally controlled for all areas, and then will it be an automatic system or a manual system? Can you tell me a little bit more about how it will be done?
Well, not maybe today because I'm not prepared for this answer. I mean, we're first talking about how to address the irrigation system, but in order to do this, I will really have to go to the professional and discuss what kind of options do we have, how we're supposed to address, in the details. And that's I was hoping that will be addressed later on. I mean, didn't expect this question, to be honest with you.
This is kind of later on.
Well, we're really going, into such as details that, of course, we can do this, but I didn't expect this, honest with you.
I think in this particular issue, the question is more of an operational concern. Big picture, the question is, do you, without getting into exactly how it works, but is the idea to have, the difference is basically, would there be a separate water meter that the association would have access to, or would each one of these be tapped off of the unit? So, I mean, that in a big picture sense is the idea to have it be controlled by the association somehow by having a single, if you could put a water meter in that has the timer with it, it's possible even without a clubhouse building to do something like that.
That's correct, and that's one of the options. The only thing my concern is that basically we don't have too much land which will be designed only to the association. Most of the land will be designing to the units. I mean, we have this detention area which will be to the association, but that will be not irrigated, and we have a little bit area between those two buildings and to the west. So those areas maybe, really have to go to the association and have a separate meter. Yeah, that's. And
then how will you do the irrigation on the individual other areas?
I think every person in the units should be responsible for this.
And you will install an underground automatic system to allow that to happen?
That's correct.
That's what we call an irrigation system?
Yes.
It won't be a hose on somebody's...
I understand this.
So I would like to...
We will install the system, yes.
I would like to have a little bit more information on, in concept, how you're going to do it.
Okay.
The walkways that go to the individual houses don't appear to have a width stated on any of the plans that I can see, and you got to understand, the plans that I can see are this big, and the sidewalk is a little bit more than a pencil width. So it's hard for me to see, but it appears that the sidewalks going to at least the end units and maybe the center units appears to be right up against the facade of the building. There's no space between the sidewalk and the side of the building. And I just want to make sure if somebody's carrying packages or a child on a bicycle or something, that there's sufficient room to, for the sidewalk to be navigable, but I can't tell what the width is. Can you tell me what the width of that?
You mean, you're talking about this between those two buildings, this sidewalk?
The sidewalk that is the people entrance to their places of living.
Well, basically they have a driveway, but I don't have, I have a small scale too, so I know that the width of the main is 5 feet. The small one here.
Yeah, see, I mean, the main sidewalk's 5 feet, and that's 2 or 3 pencils widths.
Yeah.
And the one next to the main entrance of the houses appears to be.
Well, there will be sufficient. I mean.
Andrew, do we have any requirements for, you know, sidewalks that are immediately adjacent to a wall?
Usually they are 30 inches, as far as I know.
You know, I'm not aware of that. We may, I'm not aware of on a
It just,
private residence, I'm not sure.
it just looks to me to be very, very small, and I'd like to know what the width is.
A minimum 30 inches.
30 inches, man, that'd be hard to ride a bicycle on, or even if you had to make, you know, a very acute right angle at the corner. I don't know that, you know, even a kid on a tricycle could, or a wheelchair, yeah, that'd be. Anyway, I'd like to see those sidewalks for the entrances to the house increased in width. I wish we had a recommendation from staff.
It's the first time it's come up, so I would have to look at it.
Okay. We talked somewhat about, you know, a photometric plan, and it was probably more about the street photometrics on decreasing the height of the streetlights that were being put in. But I believe at least I heard last time that you were going to put some external lights on the buildings themselves, correct?
That's correct.
And do we have any indication of how that is going to complement the photometric plan, and for those buildings that have side entrances, you know, and a long walkway to the front door? What kind of photometrics are we going to have, well, along those kinds of areas?
No, the photometric plan will include only the light fixtures along the road. The photometric doesn't include the private light fixtures, which will be mounted, you know, at the garage door next to the garage doors.
And how about how long is that sidewalk on the sides of the building from, let's say, the front of the building to where the entrances are on the side? I mean, that appears to be a pretty long.
Yeah, that's enough. I don't have engineering plans on me, so I don't have exactly this dimension.
But, you know, it just seems like you should have some kind of lighting there on the.
Well, we have in the front of the house like a standard. Yeah. You know, every house mostly have whereas the garage door,
Right.
2 light fixtures, so that's what
Right.
we're planning to put on. And this is sufficient to light the, depth of the car, which is standing in front of the garage door.
And I'm not worried about where the car is, because on the side of the house, it's going to be pretty dark.
Now we're having a road, and we're having the light fixtures along the road, which give us additional light, and that's what will be the photometric plan determine the required area of light.
Andrew, again, I'll ask you for, Northgate crossings, for other for other apartment complexes and condo complexes that we have done. We've asked for, how the common areas are lit, how the entrance lighting is going to be lit. Now, I understand these are more townhouses, but they're still kind of common areas that I would like to know if there's going to be sufficient lighting in the design. Do we have any criteria?
Not in particular. I think what we would look at on a townhome is usually what the fixture looks like. The lights over the entrances there's a minimum, I think it actually comes from the building code. There's a building code standard for entrances on every type of building, anytime you have an entrance. What we're looking at in this case, similar to what the petitioner said, is the original photometric plan demonstrated adequate light levels along the roadway. We have a standard under Title 17,
Right.
The subdivision ordinance, of lighting along a roadway, private or public. In this case, the photometric plan that was provided met that standard using a different light fixture. When the petitioner switched to a decorative light fixture, we were seeking confirmation that the new light fixture would meet the Title 17 standard for minimum light level along the street. So it was more aesthetic on the building mounted light fixtures, and then functional is what we were looking for on the roadway.
Would it not be normal for us to ask where the light fixtures might be placed on a building such as this, or?
Sure, I think that from an aesthetic standpoint, I believe the fixtures, the locations are maybe shown on the elevations. Do you recall if they're
No, I
noted?
didn't show, but they're
sort of
next to the
typical-
garage door, on each side, so.
But the concern that staff was raising the last time was about
Right.
the photometrics of the roadway.
Oh, yeah, no, I understand that completely. I was just wondering if the photometric analysis could be extended onto the.
Not typically.
The common property or whatever you want. I don't know where stuff is going to be or what it's going to be designated.
Not typically. The light produced by those smaller fixtures, it gets into a little bit more difficult calculation. It's more, I think the building code does have standards about lighting the entrances, but the photometric plan doesn't typically get into the light levels cast by those.
I would just like to see, especially on those sides of the building that have the long walkway, I'd like to know I'd like to see where the lighting is going to be placed, and would like to be assured that the light will be capable of lighting up the entrance to their buildings.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of my concerns was concerning the HOA, and that was umpteen pages, right? Will fencing be allowed in the individual backyards, or would it not be allowed? Would that's something I believe would be in the association. And I believe we had the association documents, or have them, but it's too hard for me to read the hundreds of pages, so. Is there anything in the homeowners association limiting where homeowners can install fences?
I'm not, not aware about this at this point. We'll have to double check this.
Andrew, I think the resident made a statement about gas line on the north side of the easement area. Any defects or problems in the middle that might affect the end users would be solely covered, from what I am hearing, by the homeowners association, or would the gas company repair the street, or how would something like that? Obviously, the village would repair the street if it involved sewers or water main. I think you said the village was responsible for. They would be the homeowners association would be responsible for sewers. How about gas mains and stuff like that? Would the homeowners association, with your understanding of the new easement agreement?
I don't know the answer to that. The gas company, when they repair their lines, they typically restore. I do not know the answer, though, to the extent to which they have to restore the repairs of their lines.
Okay. And because of the I think the easement agreement is changing. I think, I'm not really sure, but it sounded like the old agreement was everybody shared in the cost of the maintenance, and the new agreement seems to say that the new property will handle their share and the owners to the east will handle their.
I think two statements got combined. The residents who are not here today had stated at the last meeting that they have taken on maintenance of the road due to the lack of anybody being on these properties. They've taken on pothole filling. They have taken on, so the easement documents do allow that. They allow them to enter the other property for the purpose of repair. That is different than having the responsibility to repair the other property. So they are, to the extent that they need the road to be in good repair, if the owner of the subject property, which is currently vacant, is not repairing it, the easement language, at least as far as I understood it, allows the owners of the houses to go on to the rest of the road and fill the potholes.
Okay, I think.
Allows, not requires.
Okay, so any repairs that are needed just for the repairs of the new area will not, are the owners of, what is it, lots 3, 4, and 5, won't be responsible for any cost associated with the maintenance of that new widened road?
No, that's covered under the easement language currently. As far as I understand it, they don't take on the repair. They have no obligation to repair what is off of their property.
Okay, so my question would have been, does that easement language need to be changed? And I think you're saying, no, the current language is sufficient.
Yes, with respect to those other homes, I believe, my opinion is that the petitioner, if this development goes forward and there are townhomes, the association documents should probably spell out to the buyers what portion of the property they're responsible for. But that doesn't change the easement language.
Okay, so, I mean, I just want to make sure that what I'm hearing is that the homeowners will not be required to participate in any costs involved with that road that is beyond their property. And I think that was the question that the resident asked, and I'm not sure she ever got a definitive answer. My last question has to do with that soil strength statement where the petitioner said that normal is some 2,000 number and his number is less. Is our village engineer aware of that report that the petitioner cited, and is it applicable or germane to
It is.
the
I
project
think,
as it's being proposed?
I don't know that that would be the village engineer's responsibility so much as the village's building inspectors. What we had suggested in the past, and what I would continue to suggest, is that if the project moves forward to permit issuance, that the permit not be issued unless there is evidence to suggest that if there some sort of structural stability is analyzed. As the petitioner said, it sounds like it's currently below the standard for some types of construction. If the type of construction that is being proposed requires a certain load-bearing capability and the soil doesn't meet it, they would have to excavate. And place compact fill in there up until it is structurally stable. Same thing goes with the environmental. If they excavate, even to pour a pad, if you excavate and discover during excavation issues that weren't apparent in your soil borings, you still have to address those as well. So we would suggest some type of although the building permit would account for this, we would require some type of language just that everybody's
I guess that my question probably should have been stated a little bit differently. The report that the petitioner stated that had that deficiency, should we collect that to ensure that the village engineer gets a copy of it, or does he already have a copy of that?
I don't think we've seen a copy of it. That is something that I think we would hold a building permit up for, is lack of, and I think that's fairly standard. I'm not the building inspector, but I would imagine that we would not issue a permit until we had evidence to suggest that the ground could support it.
It's just require a different type of foundation. Usually when you have a 2,000, you can have a strip foundation, but here you require a slab foundation, and that's only recommendation.
Yeah, I understand, but my concern is, when does the village of Wheeling find out about that deficiency, and should we gather that documentation now as part of our process, or would it be automatically collected later on through the permitting process, whatever?
I would say somewhere in between. I think a condition of approval ensuring that that documentation is provided prior to permit issuance would make sense.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was asking. And that's my last question, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's finish up down there with Commissioner Zangara.
Thank you. I didn't think I was going to be able to talk. Just for Terry, they will have to go through a process, and they probably will not even build if their liability with the ground and everything too. So they'll get their documentation and I know send it over to, so just to clarify that for you. Okay. Regarding this now, the rezoning and stuff, I'm not seeing any issues with the rezoning. I was going down, you talked about $300,000, a unit. I'm thinking if they're gonna put 2 homes up there, they're gonna be $1 million homes anyway, so if you do the math, it's, either way you're looking at it, I don't see much. 2 homes could, but 2 homes can bring us just as much traffic as the 8 townhomes. I mean, it could happen. I mean, I have a house, I have a party, I have 40 cars on the street. It happens. Townhome, we've told them they can't park on the street. So in that respect, I don't have any hardships. My thing was, like I talked about before, which I'd still like to see, is when they put that road in, and I know you said phasing and stuff like that, so there's no inconvenience to any of those people in the back. I know you said phase, do half a street. I'd like to see that so they have peace of mind that they're not going to be stuck on a dirt road, a gravel road, anything like that. Otherwise, with the rezoning, I mean, to me, I understand the residents. They have, they've had empty property there. It's kind of like their little home. But I think what you've provided and shown, to a point, you're upgrading a lot that was there, and I think you'll see a big return in how they've done the retention, and you're going to see a bigger progress with water. I really believe that. Getting back to site plan appearance, I still think that does need a lot of work. There's a lot of questions that I've been hearing that I've had that I'm not going to really hit on because they've been hit on, and I think we need to see more with that. As a project going forward, I agree with, trying to reach out to the property in front of you. I mean, there has to be something worked out. I really agree. I don't think there's going to be a huge amount of traffic, but, just something, because from what I'm hearing is we could sit here and approve anything we want, but there's going to be a lot more issues going on than just us saying, go ahead and build it. You can build it and be stuck because there might not be a way to get back there.
I'm very open. After the meeting last time, I tried to talk to the owners. They don't want to have any cooperation. Okay, I didn't talk to the owner of the property on the Milwaukee. We'll be more than happy if there will be any cooperation. It would be nice, to discuss with him, especially that there will be cross-traffic. And we have to address this, and I think we are very flexible. Right? That's the point, be human.
And just with going with the new street and everything, especially with the homeowners, putting that new street in, I mean, I would like to see something worked out where at least give them the new street pavement, not maintenance to keep them up, but work with them a little bit to say, hey, we're doing this development, we're going to extend our pavement to give you guys if it's a driveway or something, just something there, instead of having a lot in front that's going to be worn and torn, your brand new street, and then in the back. I'd like to see something kind of continued just to help everybody, if it's possible. I mean, like I said,
if we can cooperate, we can talk, with the owners. Great.
And
I mean, I have right now hardship, to find the common language because nobody want to talk to me.
Understand. I'm just stating some things that I've heard and just want to reiterate. But as for the site plan itself, like Terry mentioned here, that I think we definitely need to see more. There's a couple things, a couple questions, regarding lighting, regarding sidewalks. I remember last time I thought I brought up something with not fencing in the yards, but just fencing in between the patios for privacy. And I know you said, that would be a good idea, but that's stuff that once it leaves here, we have nothing more to do.
Fine. I'm happy to address this next meeting. Yes.
Okay. So, as far as that's concerned, I'm pretty, with their questions, kind of my statements here, I'm going to let the rest go on and see where it goes from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Powers.
Thanks. I listened to what Mr. Friedman had to say, and I kind of agree. After the last meeting, I was concerned about his statement about his perception of his interpretation of the easement in the front, and he stated, 3 weeks went by and no calls were made. I was kind of surprised too that he stated that nobody was called. I guess, and then we had, on the other side of the property, we have the homeowners who say there was going to be an assessment, and I guess I'm kind of feeling a communication issue here that I feel you need to work more with the property owners, and especially the interpretation of the easements and what's going to happen with this homeowners association. I think we spent a lot of time talking about the easements, but I'm not necessarily sure how much the village should be interpreting that, and maybe, with you developing the property, I'm not sure if we have a clear understanding what's going on with those easements and how they should be used, and if there is an understanding, maybe have somebody here that we could questions so we get the right interpretation and then we're not possibly burdening staff with that.
Well, I'm very open. As I said, at the last meeting, I started to talk and I tried to get the communication. Well, that's what you pointed. We're missing communication, but I have a big resentment. So if the neighbors would like to cooperate with us, I think they will be, to the best of their interest and our interest, to find a common solution.
Okay,
but
and
the
then
only thing, communication.
I appreciate you putting the homeowners association pack together, but that's another thing too, because I'm not sure. If I were going to buy there, I'm not sure I know everything that I'd be responsible for paying for, and I think that as things go along, things are going to evolve, and it could get quite costly. And I would hope that after this is all done, that when a person purchases one of your units, that they know exactly what they're going to be responsible for. Okay, I mean, I'm part of a homeowners association too. We have a common areas that we have to maintain, but I think this is a private street. We're talking about street maintenance, maintenance of a common area, and upkeep, landscaping, snow removal. I mean, all that stuff is in there, and I'm really concerned, that I feel in a way that somehow that should have been developed a little bit, and it's still evolving. And before you're ready to, issue, and sell a place, I mean, you got to have something concrete. I'm just not feeling it right now.
Well, I can say only I will try, after this meeting, talk to them one more time, and maybe, maybe they will be willing to address some issues and their concerns, so we can put in our project.
Could I ask the petitioner that talked? Did I understand it correctly that they said that there was a road between the two detention ponds at one time? Was that true? That ran north to south?
At one time, there were two ponds.
Yeah.
And there was a road run between the two.
From north to south?
Minnows and whatever he had in the other pond. They kept these separate.
So there was a road that went from north to south between them? Between the ponds?
North to south. It was a very small road just for us, maybe a small truck or something. We're talking way back in the 50s.
Okay. Thank you. So in the case where, what kind of, since these units will not have basements in it, what kind of foundation are they going to be on? Are they going to be on a slab, or is there going to be like a smaller, with like a trench footing or something in there? What's that going to be like? Because I'm really worried about the soil condition, and at what point does the village get involved? How do they inspect like the foundation, or before the foundation is, do they check the soil to make sure that there's nothing there? I mean, because I'm concerned. I'm hearing stories about so much going in there. When they dig, at what point does will the village get involved, that when that excavation starts, they will say, yeah, it's good to go, or no, you got a problem, you got to fix it?
The village does not enter the property to dig. The village doesn't enter the property to conduct independent tests. If this were a recognized contaminated site and there was an open IEPA case file on it, the IEPA certifies in the end, and the village would receive a certification that it has been cleaned. It's called a no further remediation letter. So if that were the case, we would be on the receiving end of the no further remediation, but we would not be the testing agent nor the inspecting agent. In this case, with respect to structural stability, my understanding is that they would have to demonstrate prior to permit issuance that they have structural stability to support the type of construction that's proposed. So if it is a townhome that has a certain type of foundation, they would have to demonstrate, not the village. The village would be on the receiving end of the permit drawings with with the engineer's report, a structural engineer probably would report on the stability of the soil.
Basically, that's what we have today. As I mentioned, we are below 2,000, and that was for the trench foundation. The report that I have here is stating that I'm between 1.25, 1.8. This will require slab-on-grade foundation type. So this is recommendation from the agency, and that's how we'll have to proceed.
Okay, because my concern is I know soil borings are expensive, and I see where they were done, but somehow I wonder
We'll
if a
have to
couple
go
more
additional
wouldn't help out.
probably. Yeah. Once we have this, right now, 8 houses, 8 townhouses, this is a new unit. We will proceed with a new soil test boring to determine, additional information. If in all areas require slab-on-grade, or we can go with the trench footing as well. So I don't know at this point.
So did you say are you planning to do additional soil borings?
Yes.
And how many additional, would you do it like where you're going to put the foundation in, or whatever you're planning?
Well, that's correct. I will put, a minimum, on 2 on where we have 4 units on the west side and 2 on the east side. So probably, another 4 borings to determine how is the soil.
There's a minimum standard for a geotechnical report where they have
and that was my other question. What is a geotechnical report?
the stability of the soil.
Okay.
And to support the structure. So if they, and again, this is not my area of expertise, but if they're proposing a building, there's an industry standard for a geotechnical report that says every X number of linear feet of the exterior wall plus the center of the building. There's some sort of standard that the geotechnical report is going to have to follow.
And when does that get introduced into the process?
I believe prior to permit issuance.
Okay.
And
So
that's
they
what
have
I'm
to
saying.
have.
I'm not totally sure, but I believe that is prior to permit issuance.
So they would take that report and provide it to you guys, say this is where we're going to be, here's the report that supports where we propose the building to be, and you guys say, yeah, okay, fine, we're happy with, there we go.
Yes.
Okay. Are we still doing this? I think the houses on the east asked for the cedar fence to remain on the east side. Are we still doing that? Was my understanding right?
That's correct.
Okay.
The owners would like to have this.
Okay. When you do come back with the updated site plan, I would also like to see like cut sheets for the lights you're going to put in front of the garage and on the side of the house, because I agree with Commissioner Stile, and it looks like it's about, just looking at the garage and the family room and stuff like that, it looks like it's at least 40 feet to the back door. So I think his concern is like mine, if you put a light by the door and you put a light by the garage, the light's only going to, the light on the front door is only going to carry so far, and you're going to have some darkness in there. And I think his concern is possibly lack of light for that run.
The new proposed light fixtures, they're 15 foot tall, they will give enough light, and that will, the photometric plan, show us.
But those lights are on the street, so are you saying that they're going to illuminate the side of the house, the side of the townhouse?
Part of the house, yes. We will see on the.
Okay, so you'll produce the photometric plans. You'll show where the lights are.
Showing to the building, yes.
Okay, all right, that's great. The landscape plan, as far as irrigation, I would like to see a shaded area on the plan, which should not be that big of a deal, to show actually what parts of the property is going to be irrigated. I don't necessarily care how you're going to get the water there per se, but I'd like to see like indicated in like some color, this is the spots of the property that are going to be irrigated. And I also do have concern of how it's going to be irrigated, who's going to be responsible and all of that. But at least if I could just see what parts are going to be irrigated, that would be helpful.
So you would like to have this markup on the landscape plan?
Just shade it. Like if you shade the whole property and say, okay, this is all going to be irrigated, that's fine.
Okay.
And right now, I think that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right. That leaves me. When, in your opening statements, you said something about a fence, and I didn't quite catch what you were doing. I know that's been a long time ago now.
I understand. There were some issues brought here by Commissioner Terry regarding double fence, because there is a fence on the north side, I mean basically south side of those property on the north, and then we're creating a new fence. And there was an issue that we want to avoid in that area between two fences.
Okay.
And, you know, I was thinking maybe, you know, the part of the area we could address with some shrubs on small, you know, trees, trees or stuff like this, if this would be permitted. I mean,
The existing fence belongs to the
to the
neighbors
owners
to the north?
of the north properties, I mean. But
Is it a common fence? I mean, same style all the way across, or is it?
No.
Everybody's got something different?
no. So this has to be evaluated, and I'm just, the reason that I brought this, I want to like to know, you know, what the board is thinking about this, because I'm not quite sure exactly how we're supposed to approach this at this point.
Okay. That answer what your concerns were, Andrew?
Yeah, I think the question that I had was, it sounded like your proposal was to just leave a fence, but then.
Well, partially, you know, put the
section of
fence, I mean, section. I mean, maybe
The
we
idea
can
is
bring
to
some.
do sections of fence and
Correct.
leave other sections open?
Yes, and, you know, where we have enough fencing, you know, from the neighbors, leave them and put, you know, shrubs or trees and stuff like this. Where there is a not very nice fence, we can put the new fence, you know, along the existing one. Kind of right now proposal, but I would like to, you know, hear your opinion about this.
All right, we'll have to come back to that one. It sounds like the biggest problem here is communication between the developer, the residents, the business. I don't know what we can do to get you all together and come up with some common ground on some of these issues. You know, we can't do it. It's up to all of you to do it.
I can't just buy our houses, so we don't have to go through all this mess.
Well, that,
They can put eight of them down where we are.
I think they were trying to buy this,
Right, but you didn't like our prices.
well, not me.
Really, I mean, this is what it's.
Well, you lost a lot because, you know, today.
I've been here so long, I don't feel like moving. Hopefully I'll live another 10 years.
well, and that's why you guys have to get together and try and hash some of this stuff
Maybe we
out.
can find common words, you know, maybe.
We'll wait till my neighbor comes back. He's good at all of this.
Oh, yeah, I spoke with him, yeah. Yeah, he loves to talk.
Yeah.
But they're only one direction.
Andrew, if we vote on the zoning change tonight and this development doesn't go through, does that have a detrimental effect on this piece of property?
No, you, as a recommending body, you don't actually have the final vote on that. What, if you were to vote on the first docket, which is a public hearing docket, that, the rezoning, et cetera, the public hearing requirement is that the specific date of the hearing continues to be published. So basically, if you vote to continue a hearing, you have to pick a date right then. If you have a site plan with a handful of unresolved issues, you don't have to pick a specific date, which means that if it took 3 weeks to resolve and make revisions, then it would be scheduled for the next meeting after that. So that's the distinction between the two of them. But if the Plan Commission were to vote on this, nothing happens with the public hearing items unless the board were to act on it. So if the the scenario were that this property were rezoned by ordinance, then that would be official. The board's vote to rezone it would then be official at that point.
Okay, but if we were to approve the zoning change and the development of the 8 townhomes doesn't happen, is that detrimental to that?
You're saying we, the plan commission, or we, the village?
Well, we, the village. If we approve it and the board approves it, and then nothing gets done with this particular project, does that have a negative effect on that property?
If the zoning is changed and the variation is approved and the site plan approval is given, and then this developer decides not to do it, that approval, the rezoning is permanent. The variations to Title 19 and 17 are permanent, and the site plan approval that allows the townhomes has an expiration date. So if this developer were to receive approvals, and you're saying like
or
if they,
not.
yeah, if they were to receive approvals, those are the permanent aspects of it. Site plan approval expires if they're unable to build it in a certain amount of time.
Okay. I think that answers it. Well, we covered a lot of territory that I don't think I need to bring up anything additional at this point. Is there anything else from the commission? Yes, there is. Commissioner Dorban.
Thank you. Did you tell Steve that you would not be putting any lights on the garage or by the front doors?
I will,
Okay, you will?
yes,
Okay, so there will be lights on the garage
Yes.
in the front?
Yes.
As well as by the front doors?
correct.
Okay, because then I misunderstood. Thank you.
Mr. Stylen.
Thank you. Just to try to alleviate some of the fears that people may have, right? I believe, Andrew, help me out here, the Townhouse Association at the corner of Milwaukee, McHenry and Route 83, there's a road that goes back through that development to another condo association and then a townhouse or something, and then there's a single family housing development, I believe, that all share that same private road, is it not? That wanders through all those.
Aben Lane, you mean?
Huh?
Aben Lane.
I don't know, is that what
It's the one next to Whippletree?
Yeah.
Yes, there are several single-family homes that have access off of a private road that goes back toward Whippletree.
No, I'm thinking about a really major single-family housing division that goes back by Whippletree and ends up at Lake Cook Road.
Oh, you're talking about Denoyer.
Denoyer, and I think there's a Kingsport housing subdivision
Yep.
way back there or something.
Denoyer.
Anyway, there's 3 or 4.
It's public.
Is it?
I think that's a public road.
Yeah.
It is public? Oh, well, then I guess I can't alleviate your fears. But I'll ask then, is there a reason why the village would not want to consider making this a public road as opposed to keeping it a private road?
It's on private property currently. It's not to the standard width of a public right-of-way. I mean, there are a few reasons.
Okay. All righty, thank you. I tried.
Excuse me. Well, I guess,
Right now, what you have in front of you, just to sum up, you've got a docket. The public hearing docket has 3 pieces to it. It has a rezoning petition, it has a zoning variation petition, and it has a subdivision ordinance, which is the cul-de-sac dimension. So we've got that. The public hearing has 3 pieces to it. In addition to the public hearing action, you have a related proposal for a multifamily development that has the site plan and appearance approval. Right now, I've got a list of 13 conditions from this discussion. Some of those are conditions that would apply regardless of what you do with the plan, but some of those are items that would be addressed on the revision to the plan. So the two options, I think, for the commission, based on this discussion, I don't think I heard a consensus that the plans themselves are ready today to make a recommendation on the townhome proposal. The Plan Commission, though, could make a recommendation, if that's the consensus of the commission, the Plan Commission could make a recommendation on the rezoning and the associated variation petitions. And again, the distinction in that would be, that would then give the petitioner, instead of a specific date for a continued hearing, that would give the petitioner the time to then finish the site plan revisions and then schedule them for a meeting once they're available. So you really have two ways to go. You could also just pick a date, continue the entire thing, pick a date certain out into the future, a month from now would probably be the first date that we could pick. So there's a couple of options of how to do this, either separate them or keep them together. And of course, under either option, the board, we would not send this on to the board based on this discussion. We would not send the other items on to the board. So I think it's up to the commission of how to determine that. And I can certainly read the list if you'd like to hear it.
Go ahead.
These are all under the PC 15-2, which is the site plan and appearance approval. The first condition is merely a reference to the related public hearing actions. Number 2, the proposed storm sewer and sanitary sewer shall be maintained and owned by the homeowners association. Number 3, water main will be maintained by the village. Number 4, plat of subdivision shall be submitted for review and approval prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. Number 5, scarlet oak trees on the landscape plan shall be replaced with a smaller street tree. Number 6, that the surveyor confirm whether there is a strip of land between the subject property and the parcels on Edgewood Drive. Hang on one second. Number 7, petitioner shall provide evidence of the stability of the soil prior to permit issuance, excavating and placing compacted fill if needed for the proposed type of construction. Number 8 was something I drafted. Of course, we can always discuss it at this point. Number 8, developer shall restore the easement area on 325 North Milwaukee Avenue with an escrow or letter of credit held for the duration of the project. That relates to the potential for damage to the driveway that's on 325. Number 9, air conditioning units will be located so that 2 for each building would be centered and 2 for each building would be near the separation between the 2 buildings. Number 10, that a road narrow sign or similar warning is added to warn westbound vehicles leaving the new wide road segment. Number 11, petitioner determine whether the irrigation will be controlled through a central shared water meter prior to the review by the board. Number 12, petitioner provide a photometric plan for the street lights and cut sheets for the building mounted lights. Number 13, that the sidewalk continue around the north edge of the parking stalls and to the opening of the detention area. The conditions I did not write that were discussed were basically to some determination as to whether the fence would be a solid fence. Of course, leaving the possibility that there might be some of the fences are chain link, some of the fences are wire fences. So there's a possibility that the homeowners on Edgewood would keep their wire fence or remove the wire fence and use this fence as the back of their fence as well. And then there was a condition suggested regarding the width of the walks on the property, just determined if they're adequate. So I didn't write those 2 down, but we certainly could.
What was it, the second or third one about the sewer system? Read that one again.
The proposed storm sewer and sanitary sewer would be maintained and owned by the homeowners association.
Now, does that include the 3 homes?
That is the sewer that is specifically on this property, so the portions for this development. They have, on their engineering plan, I don't have it up right now, but the engineering plan has a unique easement to the south and to the north. There's a lift station involved, so there's some unique features to it that are, although they're sufficient in terms of the design, they're abnormal in terms of village maintenance. For their location, they're on, private property.
Is that how the residents are currently set up?
They're currently, you're talking about
Their sanitary sewer system?
They have an existing connection for the homes. This is a separate.
So this is going to be a separate line?
There is a separate line coming from the south, I believe, correct?
Yeah, I think they have.
Both come
from the east side. We have from the west side.
And I can't remember exactly where the split is, but
and there's somewhere here. Yes, correct.
And then
and one here for the water. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And then the storm, but we've already discussed the storm.
Mr. Stylen.
One thing that I forgot to add was the sidewalk on the east side of the property currently ends at the parking lot. I would like to have that extended either on the north side as the latest design shows, or it existed on the south side of the old design of the parking lot, but I'd like the sidewalk to be extended all the way to the entrance of the retention pond area, such that children could walk down and play
So
in the...
going north of the parking stalls.
North of it or south of it, I don't care.
Well, south is street, so we'll put the north,
Yeah, that'd be fine.
That's fine.
Okay. The way that would be phrased would be the sidewalk shall continue around the north edge of the parking stalls to the opening in the detention area.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, I guess what I think the commission would need to determine is whether all of these should be continued to a specific date, or if the commission would like to resolve the 3 issues, the 3 public hearing items, and then bring the site plan and appearance back for a non-specific date.
Commissioner Stylen, your opinion on that?
I guess in the past, sometimes we have been able to add conditions to variation items. I don't know if we've ever been able to add a condition on a rezoning item.
It's fairly unusual, I would say. I mean, if you go back 30 years, you used to see reverter clauses, which we had. I don't know if we've done that in 20-something years. It's been a while.
So I guess my recommendation is if we're going to vote, we vote on the rezoning and the variations all together as a group. I mean, individually, but at the same time, and keep the site plan issue as a separate entity. But I think we need to vote on all 3 of the public hearing items at the same time, whether it's now or later. I don't care. I'd leave that up to the petitioner. If it helps him with funding or continuing to pursue plans, I'd be happy to vote now, or if he thinks that maybe by doing a better site plan and whatever, that he might be able to sway some of our votes now, then I'd leave it up to...
When we get the approval, then we can put much more work in the details, of course.
So I mean, I'd kind of leave it up to him what would help him know where we're going. I don't want him to spend money on doing site plan stuff if we're not going to give him the zoning, so.
Commissioner Zangara?
I agree. I don't mind voting on the zoning and stuff, but the site plan definitely needs improvements.
Commissioner Dorband?
I would like to do it all together.
Commissioner Powers?
I think I'd like to do it all together, too.
split there. Well, I'll ask the petitioner then, do you want to keep everything all together? And because it looks like you've got to do a lot of work on the site plan, based on what our discussions were tonight.
Yes, we have to go to the details, and of course, we would like to have some green light that, our petition will be approved, and there will be some, good.
So would you like us to vote on the zoning and variations tonight?
If we can count that we will be approved, yes.
The follow-up to that before you move on, the follow-up to that would be just clear understanding of whether or not these items would even go to the Board of Trustees. The scenario that I was describing a few minutes ago was that the items, the variation, rezoning, and the other variation would just be held. The recommendation of the commission would just be held until the site plan
yes,
catches up.
exactly.
So you would not be you'd be receiving a recommendation.
Correct.
On part of it, but not a full.
That's what I'm looking for.
Is that, I don't know if that was the
Okay,
understanding of the
so
commission.
the zoning wouldn't go to the board separate?
Unless the commission specifically asked us to go ahead and take it on. The only purpose of this would be so that instead of picking a date and then having a definite date, we would wait for him to finish his revisions and then set the date based on completion of the revision. So if it took 2 weeks to finish the revisions, then from that date, whenever the next meeting is, then we would put it on the agenda. If we keep the public hearing open, we pick a date right now and say March 12th, for example, and everybody's aware that it's intended to come back on March 12th. Does that make sense?
I'm going to have to put it on you.
Well, we're dealing with a site plan, of course, we have to do. I'm dealing with some third parties, like, photometric plan, which I was promised to have on Monday, today, Thursday, I still don't have it. So I think 1 month is enough for me, to do this, but it's your voice.
Well, we could table it for.
Sure, you can continue to the March 12th. We have, we're not holding the meeting on the 26th. You're aware of any other public hearing items? What do we have for the 12th? Okay, we have a fairly minor. If they came in, I don't think they're coming in. Well, yeah, yes. Yeah. I think we could do the 12th without overcrowding that agenda.
That okay?
I'm very happy, but.
All right, do I hear a motion to table this?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to table all 4 of the.
This would be a motion to continue.
Oh, motion to continue to.
2015-1.
Was that March 18th?
March 12th.
March 12th for all 4 of the items.
Okay, we have a motion to continue it to March 12th. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Is this voice vote or?
Continuation, I suppose you can do a continuation on a voice vote.
Or should we?
You can roll it off.
Yeah,
if you think.
let's do a roll call vote. Commissioner Stylen.
Already, I'm Commissioner Stylen. I vote yes to continue. Commissioner Powers?
Yes.
Commissioner Doorband?
Yes.
Commissioner Zangara?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Yes.
It's 5 yes, 1 absent, and 1 vacancy.
All right. Anybody have anything?
Well, I'm going to print this list for you so you can take it with you.
And we're going to take a 5-minute break. I know this guy
Because
can talk.
we need to update something in the system, if that's not enough for you. Just have to talk to building services to see if we can build a little tray to hold these things. You know, like a little, like a stand.
Just
make those
yeah,
easels
a
for
couple
like
of easels.
No, like a heavy-duty one for the bricks to hold them up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, March 12th.
Where'd she get coffee? She ran the Dunkin' Donuts.
Old bricks.
Everybody
You
settle
can,
down.
Like a standing desk at
your
work.
hearing can only be as long as you can hold the building materials.
Okay, let's get going. Okay. We're back.
We're back.
Calling docket number PC 15-3, Woodland Creek, 333 Wood Creek, site plan and appearance approval of a clubhouse. Mr. Jennings?
Just one brief staff note. There's an existing leasing office at this development. I think I put together a slide to show that. The one thing that wasn't totally clear, I think, is exactly how this sort of fits into the big picture. So I put this overlay together to show Wheeling Road, Palatine Road. This detail area here is the area we're talking about. So it's sort of the northwest corner. There are additional residential buildings and other common buildings across the lake. But this is where we're looking. There's an existing leasing office here. And with that, I'd just like to hand it over to the petitioner and let them present it.
Hello, David Friedman. I'm president of FNF Realty. Our company is managing Woodland Creek Apartments.
Could you give your business address to the secretary, please?
We acquired the property about 5 months ago. Our goal is to upgrade the property, and one of the important elements in marketing the property is number one, today many potential residents are looking for working at home, and business centers are very important in communities like this. Our goal here is this is a bit of a misnomer here in it being just a rental building, because our goal here is to create a business center. This is about a 4,000 square foot building. It will also house the rental office for the complex. But our goal is to create a place where residents can come. There's Wi-Fi, there's computers use, printer use, there's a boardroom that they can use by merely reserving it, and a living area where there's a breakout area from the boardroom as well. We'll also have a portion of it designated for office, for the rental office use. And this is where potential residents would come to view the apartments. So I think we've tried very hard to locate it in an area where it's served by the adjoining roads within the property, and tried not to disturb as little as possible. It's the beautiful the property and the woods that are in the property. We have our architect here, Maran Faramanpur, who can really talk more about the site plan and everything else.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Maran Faramanpur. I'm from MRPC, the architect working with Mr. Friedman. We have done the site plan work, the building design appearances. We work with engineers. Hager Engineering is a civil engineer, and Daniel Weinbach Partners is our landscape designer. You'll see the drawings included in your package. Are you going to give a staff report, or should I
No,
summarize?
no additional staff. I just wanted to, give me 1 second.
Of course.
Just 1 second.
Yeah, I smelled something, but.
Somebody know what that is?
What, the smell?
Yeah.
That's the cedar.
Okay.
It's,
I'm sorry. Yeah,
I just wanted to make sure that we weren't.
on fire?
I'm trying to encourage the meeting to adjourn as quickly as possible.
You stained it while you were listening to the last
Yeah,
hearing?
it was the last few minutes.
Made the bricks during that time? Okay. All right. Sorry, go on. No, there's no additional staff count. The only concern that we had originally had with this, as we discussed in our preliminary meetings, was the parking and the extent to which this parking would function. You know, you've got a business center that might potentially draw residents from farther out in development who might actually drive, combined with this area that's right in front of the building. So we had discussed whether or not you might need to dedicate some amount of space specifically to the business center, so that you wouldn't have the residents of the nearby building taking up the common parking. So that was the question that we'd really had is, you know, this is a triangle with the buildings around it. So.
There is typically ample parking directly north of this triangular area. There's a whole row of parking spaces which is last to be filled up. So we expect if anybody is going to drive from anywhere else in the community, they are going to be taking those spaces if there is nothing available immediately at the front door. Okay, walk through the whole site plan?
Sure.
All right. The existing leasing office is a very small building that's only about 1,200 square feet directly south of this particular triangular landscaped area. That building will be demolished. It will be removed. It would help us in two ways. One is to give us additional green space, more pervious area, as well as open up the view of this building and the living room. That's where the residents are encouraged to come, sit, have a cup of coffee, work on the computer, and so forth. That space then will be overlooking the big pond, the lake that is in the community. The leasing office that's there now would actually block that view, so that would help us in that regard. The building itself is comprised of three different elements. One, the biggest, foremost, sort of a front view is as you enter the facility is a very tall space with lots of glass facing south and the lake. That would be the living room. That's the area that we provide for the residents to come in and sort of it's a communal space for them that they may not have in their apartments. A lot of people like myself that work out of home, and it kind of gets boring sitting at home in a small, bedroom, day after day after day. You can come here, sit down, bring your computer with you. You do have access to a business center, which is the business center sort of off to the side right there. Thank you, Andrew. And the boardroom, which is also adjacent to the front entrance, would be the second element of this. That's where you can actually sit down. There will be a large desk with computers on it, or you can plug in, use the Wi-Fi, use the printers and so forth. If you have meetings arranged that you don't want to have in your apartment, or you'd rather have 8 people coming from different areas to meet, you can use the boardroom. Sign up for it, you can use that for your business as well. The third element of the building is the leasing office to replace what we are going to take out. We do want people who come there, the potential residents, to have a nice experience, of course, to have a good first impression. So that part of the building also would be rather nice. They would have taller ceilings, a lot of glass, nice conference rooms. They would have a little counter on the side that would be the hospitality area, cookies, coffee, and whatnot. So that's the function of the building from a floor plan point of view. As far as the appearance and the design of the building itself is concerned, we try to keep the design to a very residential scale. It is larger than a house, although plenty of houses are bigger than this, but we broke it up to smaller sections. When you look at the elevation of the renderings, everything is residential scale. There are plenty of taller buildings around this, 5-story residential apartment buildings, but this one is broken up into smaller pieces. We use materials that are very residential, very friendly, lots of stone, that would be natural stone. Samples are here. I don't know if all of you can see it. Mr. Powers, can you see?
We can smell them.
You can smell them for sure, yeah. The stone, there's natural stone being used. We're using shiplap cedar siding with a natural finish to it. We also use standard size residential brick, which is in the same family of colors, that reddish brown color as the rest of the buildings on the property, and the roof shingles are also noted. There's a sort of an off-white cedar there. That would be the fascias and all of the trim. And we also have the limestone. There's a small square limestone sample there as well. That would be for the sills and the accents in the masonry areas of the building. Landscaping-wise, we are taking some of the older trees that are in this landscape island. We will have to remove those, but we will replace them with a large quantity of landscaping, foundation landscaping all around the building. We do have some shrubs and smaller decorative trees, ornamental trees that would screen our landscape, our air conditioning condensers, taller trees further out to allow them to grow around the building. I'll come back to the fireplace and this view a little later. Andrew, if we can go back to that first rendering, or this one, this is fine. The front entrance of the building would be treated as sort of a welcome place where you have trees on either side. Even though it's not a boulevard per se, we are treating it as such. Lighting for the building would be ground lighting in the landscaping areas and in the back as well. Soft, discreet. They're not going to have a lot of poles and so forth around to keep it, again, as subdued and residential scale as possible. The roof of the building is actually something we had to pay a lot of attention to. Even though most of the time you think that you're just walking around the building, you're not seeing the roof. In this case, there are 2 5-story buildings on either side, one on each side of the building. So some of these residents will be looking down on the roof. And that's why it's broken up into so many layers. And we actually looked at a number of different finishes for the roof. And the sample you see here is what we have selected for that. I don't know what else I can address. Are there any questions, anything I've left out?
Well, we'll turn it over to the commissioners and find out.
Great.
Commissioner Powers, we start with you.
Plans look really nice. I mean, there's a ton of work, and I really appreciate all the hard work you put. I mean, it's really a really nice set of plans. The front walk to the clubhouse, is that brick pavers?
It is, yes.
Okay. The caliper size for the tree, Andrew, is 3.5, is that the normal that we normally have?
It depends on the type of tree. The shade tree, I believe, were 3.5. Ornamentals were 2.5.
Okay, so that looks like that's fine. Are there gutters and downspouts on this building?
Yes, in fact, there are gutters and downspouts. The architectural drawings do show them. They're pre-finished aluminum seamless gutters. They would match the off-white color of the fascia boards.
Are they in the packet here? Are they depicted?
They are on the elevations. In fact, you can see them right there.
Okay, there they are. Okay, that's great. In one page of the packet, it talks about a volume control system. And it looks like, I think I saw like I don't know, trenching, but there was like it's like how does the water drain? It looks like it goes into like an underground system, then goes out. Can you explain that a little bit?
It's essentially a restrictor. It only allows a certain amount of water to get to the sewer system at a time.
Okay.
So if you have a big rainstorm and a ton of water doesn't just wash right into the lake The lake is our detention area, all of the lakes or ponds in the subdivision. So instead of just rushing a lot of water right to it and creating turbulence and so forth, this would essentially back it up in the pipe, and then that restrictor would allow only 4 inches of water to get through at any given time. So it might take, the rain might be 15 minutes of heavy rain. It might take 2 hours for that water that's been collected to get back into the lake.
So the water that's being collected, is it going like, it's coming off the roof into the downspouts and then like underneath there? Is there,
Correct,
and then it's
yes.
being restricted once it gets underneath there?
Right. The pipes that are underground, the storm management pipes, are larger than the amount of water they're going to carry. So the pipes are essentially your storage. Pipe fills up, it's fairly large, and then allows that water to get through slowly.
Okay. Let's see here. Is there an irrigation indication on the landscape at all?
No, we have not. At this point, we have not shown any irrigation. I think that there's enough. In the Chicago area, you typically get fairly good rain.
Oh, so there's no plan to put an irrigation system in?
I think the first month they have to water everything. So that would be part of the landscaping plans and so forth. The first year, everything is guaranteed. So if anything should die, they would replace them. We haven't had any problems with not having irrigation, but we may choose to do that from here on.
I was kind of hoping that this area would irrigate. You would have, sprinklers to water your plants so they don't die and stuff like that. They're like maintained.
Most of the key areas around buildings have irrigation today at Woodland Creek. I don't think there's any big sod areas here. Yeah, I think typically if it's shrubs and trees, we don't provide irrigation for shrubs and trees. If there was a grassy area, yeah, we would provide irrigation.
I'm not sure. I may, boy, I don't know. I'll let my
There's
other
probably
commissioners comment.
1,000 trees on this property.
No, I mean, I understand. Andrew, one question, has Lori looked at any of the trees on the plan? I had a question about the Chanticleer pear, if that was an approved species.
That is something we've seen. She has not looked at it, but that is something that we have certainly seen on other plans.
Yeah, okay. What about lighting? It looks like there's the existing rental office now has lighting. Are you proposing to take that lighting away and move it into the area of the new clubhouse or your new facility, or are you purchasing new lighting?
No, we are not relocating any lights that are there now. This building will have, as I said, some ground lighting around the walkway. It would have a building mounted light fixture and also would have soffit lighting, especially at the entrance.
So would that lighting carry out into the parking area at all? I mean, would there be sufficient light? Like if there's going to be parking areas around the building, would you need to possibly locate lights around the building?
There are existing light poles that provide lighting for the parking spaces.
Okay.
If anything, we are reducing the number of parking spaces in the immediate vicinity of this proposed building.
Okay.
So that lighting does not change.
Okay.
Those are already lit and they will remain lit. To light up the building, we intentionally kept it as minimal as possible so that it's only at the entrance, soffit areas and so forth. Really don't intend to have a huge stadium kind of lighting around the building.
That's fine. Again, I think really nice job. I mean, even to see the elevations, how the stuff's going to look, I mean, it took a lot of hard work and it really looks, nice. Well done.
Thank you.
And I really have nothing for right now. That's about it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Dorband.
Thank you. It is a great design. I like it. I like the layering of the roof. I think that roof line looks great. I do have some concern about not irrigating the property, and I just want to make sure there's enough lighting within the parking lot as well as around the building. That's my only comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Zangara.
Thank you. Just a couple questions, be pretty quick. One is, you talked about the pavers in the walkway. Now, I know Woodland Creek, I know you guys really maintain it, especially wintertime with shoveling, but a suggestion, maybe a comment would be, first time I noticed it, and I was at the library last Sunday when it snowed out, and I believe the library has heat underneath their entrance, especially with pavers.
For melting the snow,
heat,
yeah.
because I know with pavers, salt and deterioration really hurts that. And it was just, I thought the library was on fire when I first got there, all the smoke. But just a suggestion. I
Nice
think
and toasty. That's a good suggestion. Thank you.
Second of all, if you look at the elevation, the front elevation, wherever the front.
It's about that.
The entrance.
This one?
Yeah, that one's perfect. The roof line that's shorter in between, the smaller roof line. You got the two tall ones, the small one. Is there any concern about that with snow drifts, leaking, snow building up in that area? Because that with this wind we had this last time, and that snow could drift in there and then it melts away, and last thing I want to have is water leaking into a building just because of that. And I know it, I think it's great. I love all the different, but I just think that could be a potential area.
I believe you're referring to the roof between the area with a large amount of glass.
Correct,
and
right
the
there.
main entrance.
Yes.
That area right there. Yes, there will be some drift. There's no question about it. Anytime you have a difference in elevation, you'll have some drifts. I am not concerned about it leaking. Typically, that's detailed pretty well because everybody expects that to be a problem area. We do have flashing going up the walls 18 inches. We do have ice and water shield coming back, not only 2 feet from the edge, but 2 feet past the interior face of the interior wall. So it basically is about, in this case, it's almost 6 feet of ice and water shield extending up the roof. Half of that roof is going to be triple layered, basically.
Okay.
So now we are aware of that. We've detailed it. It will be addressed in construction, and I'm sure Mr. Friedman would be paying a lot of attention to those details.
And then going completely the opposite side where the full glass window, glass wall is.
The fireplace.
Yes.
Very expensive fireplace, yes.
Is that fireplace, is it seen from outside and inside?
It is, yes. Yeah, that will be a custom fireplace. There's only a couple of companies in the country that make them. It's 11 foot long. It will have, will be a sealed gas fireplace, glass on the inside, insulated glass on the outside. And if you notice, there's some large boulders that we are showing just outside of that area. We hope that if the weather permits, people can actually sit outside and see the fireplace.
And my big question, that's a full glass wall. The sun's going to be beaten in that room.
Yes.
Is there any kind of shading going to be provided?
Yes. We've already talked about having some kind of a, I'm drawing a blank, shading, motorized sun shades for that exposure, yes.
Okay, and
blinds, that's what I was looking for.
With the living area conference room is and I'm sure I think code will take more care, is one bathroom for each enough?
Yes.
It'll provide?
Yeah. The Illinois Plumbing Code is what dictates the number of fixtures that you need, and that's based on the number of occupants. The number of occupants is based on the square footage and the type of usage and so forth.
And then my last question, because we just spent a big amount of time on this. I love the building, like everyone said, the presentation's great.
But?
What? The stone that, we have a wall of stone, we have a wall of, is it siding? Cedar siding. Brick.
The smelly stuff.
Was there any consideration of taking the stone and running like a stone all the way around a certain level to kind of tie everything in so it doesn't feel like it's piece by piece by piece?
Yeah, we did in fact draw a number of different elevations. We presented different looks and renderings and so forth. I don't have my computer with me, otherwise I could have shown you that we've done those renderings. The consensus at the end of the day was, let's break it up so that it does look like chunks of here is an element that's stone, here's an element that's brick, here's another element that's wood, rather than having something that goes across. It's aesthetics, and everybody would have a different take on it.
And then my last question that I have for you, and you might have caught it and I might have missed it on the site plan, is there any bike racks in the front there? Because with that, like Woodland Creek,
No,
I know
you
people
caught me on
ride.
that one. I have not shown a bike rack in the front, but there certainly is enough room to accommodate something.
Just because I know everyone rides around there and everything. And
Yeah, no,
they probably ride
missed
bikes
that
more
one.
than taking their cars there, so.
Yep,
But that is all I have. Thank you.
thank you.
Commissioner Stylen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to thank you for presenting us an excellent package of material, and I especially like the colored renderings, right, including your landscaping, that really helps sell us that you're going to have a great project. My only concern is irrigation. I think with all your landscape plantings around the building, I think irrigation would help. But other than that, thank you for doing an excellent job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right. I only had a couple things. One of them came up during the discussion as far as the occupancy of this thing. Is there certain hours that this building is occupied?
Typical business hours. Yeah.
From 9 to 6.
9 to 6? So
7 days.
if someone were wanting to use the business office, that's off limit, it's not open to the residents all the time? Okay. And the last thing I had was the use of EFS on the chimney part.
I already told Andrew that if EFS is an issue, we have two other options. One is to go to actual cement plaster, which would have the same look. And short of that, we'll go to a limestone veneer. It will be a 1-inch thick limestone tiles, I guess, that we could use. We prefer not to do that because then you see all the joints. As you go up, we kind of like to have this very continuous look to this surround for the fireplace. I would ask for your indulgence in that particular case, and if that doesn't work, then tell me if cement plaster would be acceptable, and if that's not acceptable, as I said, the alternative is to do limestone.
Well, I know typically this board does not like EFS, especially near ground level. I don't know enough about the cement plaster to comment on that.
The problem with EFS that a lot of people, when they think about EFS and problems, is how it's attached typically, and also the backing, the sheeting that is applied onto. Now, EFS has come quite a long ways since the times that we all heard about, buildings falling apart and so forth. After 10 years, I use EFS extensively in Florida. You would think of all places in the United States, that would be the one state you don't want to use EFS, but they use it. It has a proven track record. They have a liquid applied waterproofing membrane instead of doing layers of sheeting and so forth. For drainage, they just use liquid applied. The substrate, instead of being plywood or OSB nowadays, the sheeting is, again, essentially a cement board. It's a plaster-cement combination that they use. It's very stable. It doesn't delaminate. It doesn't, when it doesn't get wet, it doesn't absorb any water. So EFS is actually a fairly good material to use. Cement plaster, on the other hand, is the old-fashioned. EFS came about trying to replace cement plaster. Cement plaster has been used for literally hundreds of years. They used to use chicken wire and wood lath in some cases.
So what we also call stucco then.
Stucco.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And that's troweled on much heavier than EFS would be. EFS is a thinner layer, but they reinforce it with fiberglass mesh, so they don't have to have as thick of a material to trowel on. Both of them would look the same. The idea is to have this sort of a smoother, continuous look to it. It will be, as you see there, it will be a very light-colored material to match limestone.
And it wouldn't absorb water on the horizontal surfaces?
I would say that it would be easier, actually, to deal with, to work and to detail than, say, limestone. Because you don't have as many joints in the material. With the horizontal surfaces, what they use is a tapered insulation material so that it does have a slight taper to it, just like a limestone sill would. Again, I've used EFS on crown moldings that are about 2.5 feet wide at the top, and we just taper the top so water can shed, and haven't had any problems with them in the last 15, 20 years we've been using them.
I know in this case, too, it's not by a traffic area, which...
No, it does have foundation planting in front of it, so there is some isolation of, nobody can really walk up to it. And it's a very limited area. It's literally about 1 foot 2 inches wide all around the fireplace and the flue.
And I don't think, one of the things that bothers me about EFS is if you throw stones and stuff, it can damage it pretty easy, but you're going to have a lot of glass around.
I'd be worried more about the glass.
Yeah, I'd worry more about the glass than...
And typically, I would specify a heavier reinforcing mesh for the traffic areas. Anytime we use EFS, and it's not very often when we do use it at walk level, but when we do, we specify a heavier gauge reinforcing and 1 extra layer of brown coat. So you really have to take a hammer or a baseball bat to it to damage it. Otherwise, it used to be people could walk up with a pencil and push it through.
Yeah.
That's really not the case in the lower areas which are heavily reinforced.
All right. Any other questions? Mr. Powers?
In our packet, there was a question that says, is there a specific plan for the footprint of the retail office? I'm not sure what was meant by that.
Did I say retail? I must have meant rental, the existing rental office. There was a point at which we had concern over whether it would be kept or not. When you confirmed that it was going to be removed, the question was, well, what's going there? Is there
It's going to be
sod?
pervious. Yeah, sod area. It's going to be an area that's going to be green.
Okay, and then like the lighting that you're going to use is it's going to be like, what kind of, can you, describe the type of lighting you're going to have around the building? I assume it's going to be like probably in a landscaping bed or closer towards the building itself?
Okay, there's 2 kinds of lighting that we are proposing at the entrance area. If you go back to the floor plan, you'll see that we indicated lighting. You see the little circles on either side of the paved walk area on top of the drawing.
Oh,
yeah, those. I see. Those are ground lights. And if we reflect that or compare that with the landscaping plan, those lights are between the trees that are proposed. So you'll have a tree stump here, tree stump here. There will be a light in the middle. At ground level, it's the little shallow domes that you see completely in ground.
Okay.
That would light up the tree branches and so on. So
okay.
The entrance to the building would have that kind of a soft lighting. Then there's a reflected ceiling plan, Andrew, if you can call that up, that would show.
I don't know if we kept that in. I think we cut that.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't interesting enough for them.
Oh, darn.
That was in our packet.
It had to be in color, huh? Yeah, that would show you soffit lighting, again, recessed can lighting, outside under the canopy where the entrance is, and then of course we'll have some kind of a chandelier element inside the vestibule as you come in. It will be surface mounted.
I have nothing else.
Okay. If there's nothing else, do I hear a motion? Do we have any conditions?
We haven't hit 2.5 hours yet.
Right now I have written that 2 bike racks are added near the front entrance, and I noted that the EFS is installed with cement backer board and a thick finish layer.
I guess, do we want to do irrigation or require irrigation of the planting? I mean, it's a lot of planting, but.
You've convinced us that most of our buildings do have irrigation, and I looked at the site plan. There's a lot of grass. We will have irrigation, I'm sure.
Okay, so we'll add that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So we have 3 conditions.
The last one is that an irrigation system is added to the area around, just immediately adjacent to this building.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second for docket number PC 15-3. Mr. Secretary.
Commissioner Powers?
Yes.
Commissioner Zangara?
Yes.
I'm Commissioner Stalen. I vote yes. Commissioner Doorband?
Yes?
Acting Chairman Johnson?
Yes.
5 yeses, 1 absentee, and 1 vacancy.
This is,
Thank you.
This is considered a major site plan review because of the size of the building, so it is a recommendation. The board does have to vote on the end, so we'll coordinate with you about a date for that.
About 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, and based on this, typically what I would do with the commission is right before they vote, we would clarify as to whether or not these conditions of approval should be addressed before you meet with the board. In this case, are there any items in here that the petitioner should be modifying on the plan? You could, of course, note on the irrigation plan, you could add that note to that.
I'll ask them tomorrow to.
And you could certainly locate bike racks on the site plan if you'd like to show where they'd be, so.
Yeah, there's nothing major there.
Okay.
All righty. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank
It
you.
always helps when there's a complete package.
Pleasure to be in Wheeling.
I was concerned there for a minute.
I know, I thought we were gonna have to evacuate.
Oh, my God.
Did it pop out?
Oh, and of course, we have some things for you to sign, so.
And we should use their packet as an example of
Yes.
something we
I
really.
agree. It should be a model packet somehow.
Right. It was absolutely excellent. Okay.
I don't know. My whole focus was on this.
Yeah, step up and be the chair.
Before you leave, do you mind signing?
We have parting gifts for you.
A gallon of burnish. I don't know if one of them may be Jim's. Thank you for your patience with the length of the hearing. We try to space things out, and sometimes we don't accurately project how long a discussion is going to be. So thanks for being patient for that.
I understand. You have to be much more patient.
That one's not mine. All right. Approval, I'm sorry, what? Approval of minutes for January 22nd, 2015. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Other business. Let's start with Andrew, because I know he's got some.
Before we move on to other business, I'm not entirely sure we actually we didn't distribute the findings that are attached to those minutes, correct? Okay. The zoning got wrapped up, and it had 4 months of preliminary findings. So let's go ahead and actually we'll put the minutes for the 22nd onto the next agenda, just to make sure that we don't mistake the approval on the zoning code findings. Okay?
Okay.
We'll distribute those. That item is supposed to be going to the board. We'll distribute them so that you can get them before the board votes. That way you can see the findings. If you have any issues with it, let us know and we'll correct them prior to the board review and then put them on your next voting agenda, okay? Other business, I have 2 quick items, I hope. The sign that we had intended to have tonight that did not make the deadline, which will now be on, I believe, the March 12th meeting. This is the sign that's being proposed. The letters will be internally illuminated. They have a graphic cabinet which will be placed next to the letter set. The existing sign is a metal, brushed metal sign, stud-mounted sign that's in the same general area. It's difficult to see against the dark background. The petitioner would like to have something that is lit. There is electric there from the rug store. Rug and furniture, just rug. So this, if you have any comments or questions, I can certainly pass them on to the sign company.
Is it actually that pink? I mean,
the letters say purple. I can ask them if they have some sort of sample.
I'd like to pass this down as an example of their existing logo and just say that I'd like to see something structured a little bit more like their logo than this. I just think their proposed sign is a little bit too smushed together. If you just, their logo's in the top left corner, if they could, space out Chicago a little bit, or maybe make it 2 levels versus.
I can tell you just briefly the reason that it is shaped the way it's shaped. The letter height was set based on, it's a little difficult to see here, but there's a recess in the building. So the sign company did fit that in there. So that's not to say that they couldn't do something else, but he spaced the letters and the cabinet to fit within, I don't know if it's a soldier course and then a soldier course separated by regular bricks, but whatever that space is, that's the amount of space that he was trying to work in. I think it's about a 4-inch recess. So if he could possibly do it, but he did have a reason for the vertical size.
Sure, and maybe if they just made the Chicago letters thinner in nature, if you look at their logo, Chicago is thin and spaced out a little bit more and fit whatever it is a little bit bolder. I just think I like their logo and I'd like to accommodate as much of that concept into it rather than all the letters being all the same size, being kind of smushed.
well, the sign would be a lot narrower with this logo because the widest part is just Fit Life instead of spreading it across the face of their building.
I'm just saying make the Chicago letters thinner in nature.
If the sign company were to make a externally illuminated panel sign in this location, this type of with the size of the letters, that may be what they have to go to. So if they went to external, like gooseneck lights, would that be an option? Just sort of let them consider those two. The image on your